Hello friends, this is Dr. Bhavika here. Currently I am doing ophthalmology from All India Institute of Medical Sciences, that is AIMS in New Delhi. So friends, here I am back with second video of squint. So in this is a continuation video. So I will be discussing in this video the classification for squint and various adaptive mechanism for the squint. So to understand this video better, you can refer to my previous video in which I have discussed about various actions of the muscles and some basic point about squint. So starting with the classification of the squint. So squint can be divided into two types, that is manifest squint and latent squint. The manifest squint, the suffix we use is tropia, and for the latent squint the suffix we use is forias. So what is the manifest and what is the latent squint? So for example, there is a pathology in the eyes and eyes are not able to properly fix on one object. That is, if the two visual axes are not aligned to the point of regard. For example, here is the point of interest and this is the left eye and this is the right eye. For example, the pathology is there in the right eye and left eye is completely normal. So if one tries to focus on this object, the left eye will focus on this object but the right eye will not be able to focus on this point. The eye will focus somewhere here or somewhere here depending upon the pathology. So there will be squint present in so it means that the squint is present in this eye and this eye is not able to properly fix on one particular object of interest. So this is known as squint and this is known as heterotropia. So but eye has a compensatory mechanism and what we can say is adaptability. So eye tries to focus on this object. So if eye is able to focus on this object by fusion, by a convergence mechanism or by any mechanism according to the pathology, so if this eye is able to focus on this object, then it is known as forias. So this is known as when tendency is overcome by fusional vergence, the subject does not manifest squint. So this manifestation, this latency can be broken. Like this can only be possible if both eyes are seeing, like if there is binocularity. But for example, if we cover this eye or if we cover this eye, then squint will manifest. It means that latency can only be there if binocularity is there. So if we cover one eye, that binocularity will be broken and fusion will be broken and squint will manifest. Right friends? Now coming about the types of squint. Squint can be of two types, comitant or we can say concomitant or incompetent. So first of all, comitant squint. In this, if the deviation is present, for example in the right eye, that deviation will be equal in all the gazes, in right gaze, left gaze, up gaze, down gaze, and in all the tertiary positions. So we can measure deviation in any direction and the deviation will be same in every direction. But in incompetent squint, the deviation will not be same in every gaze. This you can understand better in my subsequent videos. So in this incompetent squint, the deviation varies in different gazes. So we have to check the deviation for both the eyes, and how to check deviation, that I will be discussing in my subsequent videos so that you can understand that better. Now what are the types of comitant squint? There are mainly three types of comitant squint: horizontal, vertical and torsional. Horizontal means that is evident from its name. Horizontal means the deviation is present in the horizontal direction. Uh, that can be iso or that can be exo. So what does iso mean? Iso or we can say esotropia or we can say exotropia. So if for example this is the eye, this is for example is the right eye, this is for example is the left eye. For example, if eye is deviated towards this side, that is towards the medial side, then this is known as esotropia. And if eyes are deviated outwards like this, then this is known as exotropia. So this is for the manifest squint. And the counterparts of these pathologies, if they are latent, then these are known as esophoria or exophoria. Right friends? And similarly for the vertical and for the torsional types of comitant squints. Now there are adaptations to squint. For example, if there is any minor small amount of deviation, then I will try to compensate for it, then so that there are minimum squint symptoms like diplopia or decrease in vision or any of the symptoms present. So as a eye, as a human body is having a compensatory mechanism, so I also try to compensate for that squint, or we can say I try to adapt to squint. So there can be minimum pathology, minimum discomfort to the patient. So there are two types of adaptations for the squint. First one is motor adaptation, and then there are sensory adaptations. So firstly, we will be discussing sensory adaptation. There are three types of sensory adaptations. First one is suppression, then second one is abnormal retinal correspondence, then third one is amblyopia. So firstly, we will be discussing suppression. So for suppression, here you can see one concept like this. This is the eye, this is the left eye, this is the right eye, this is the left eye. So present, this is the object of interest. So if right eye is pathological and left eye is normal, so what the eye will try to do, left eye is focusing normally on this point, but the right eye is not able to focus, so it will focus on the retina, like this is the retina, so of the right eye, so like this. So this is the fovea, so I will focus somewhere here or somewhere here, but it will not focus on the pointer of interest, that is on fovea. So what does our eyes do? They suppress the image of the right eye. The image of the right eye is not sent to the brain, so the image of only left eye is sent to the brain, and the image of the right eye is suppressed. So here you can see that ignoring the image of the eye, which is formed on the extrafoveal location and has a poor visual potential, right friends? Like these points are known as extrafoveal points, because the image is not forming on the fovea, but instead is forming on these points depending upon the deviation present. If deviation will be more, the image will be formed farther from the fovea, and if deviation will be less, the image will be forming somewhere near the fovea. So depending upon the deviation, if image is formed near the fovea, like if the extrafoveal point has a good visual potential, that is in small deviations, extrafoveal point will be near the fovea. So in that case, this is known as abnormal retinal correspondence. If the extrafoveal point is present near the fovea, then this is known as abnormal retinal correspondence. Now the third one is amblyopia. What is amblyopia? For example, if squint is present in the right eye and squint is present in the right eye and it is present since childhood, for example at the age of 1 year or at the age of 2 years or even less than that. So the eye is in developing stage in that age group. So if there is not proper signaling from the affected eye, the brain will stop receiving signal from that eye, right friends? And if we correct the pathology, like if we operate the patient, or if we give him if we keep the patient on conservative management like glasses or something like that, the brain will still the pathology is corrected now by surgical intervention or by any conservative management, but the brain will still not receive the signal from that eye. It means that the eye has become amblyopic, right friends? So it means even after there is no pathology in the eye, after correcting the pathology or after correcting the squint, the image is not forming on the brain. The brain is not receiving signal from that eye. This is known as amblyopia. So like the condition with unilateral or bilateral decrease in the visual function, which is caused by firm visual deprivation or abnormal binocular interaction like squint, which cannot be explained by the disorder of the ocular media or visual pathway itself. It means that if we have corrected the pathology, there is no pathology right now in any of the eye. Like if media is clear, or if there is not any pathology in the nerves or any or in the visual pathway, but the eye is not able to visualize the things properly, or the brain is not receiving the signals. So this is known as amblyopia. Now there can be various causes for amblyopia. Amblyopia can occur in not only in squint, but it can occur in any other pathologies also. So according to that, we have classified the squint. So first one is the strabismic, that I already told you. Patient fixate with the normal eye leads to prolonged unilateral suppression of the This is the contralateral eye. This is the affected eye. Sorry. So if patient is fixing with the normal eye, patient is able to see the objects in the field properly, but by ignoring the image formed by the affected eye. So this is known as strabismic amblyopia. Now the anisometropic amblyopia. In this anisometropic amblyopia means the eye is, one of the eye is having higher refractive error than the fellow eye. For example, in hypermetropia, if the difference is more than 1 to 2 diopter between both the eyes, and for the myopia, if the difference between the two eyes is more than 3 diopters. So for example, the one eye is having a spherical equivalent of -1 diopter, or if other eye is having a spherical equivalent of -5 diopter. So the eye which is having a spherical equivalent of -5 diopter, the brain will not properly receive signal from that eye, and hence that eye will become amblyopic. Now the third one is form visual deprivation, that is stimulus deprivation or ametropic amblyopia. What is the stimulus deprivation? For example, there is a congenital cataract present in one eye, then that eye will not be able to send proper signals to the brain, and hence that even if we correct the cataract in that eye, then even after correcting the cataract, the brain will not receive signals from that eye, and hence the eye will become amblyopic. Like cataract, ptosis, if there is drooping of the eyelid, the patient or the child will not be able to see the eye in which ptosis is present. And if there is corneal opacity, so in that case also there will be media opacity, and the eye will not be able to function properly. Now the second one is ametropic amblyopia, that is if uncorrected refractive error is present in both the eyes. For example, if both the eyes are having a refractive error of say -6 diopter or -7 diopters, that is a very high refractive error. So if we will not correct that refractive error on time, or this high refractive error is present in the developing age, so the patient will try to focus, but because since the refractive error is very high, so the image will not be properly formed on the brain. So even if after correcting the refractive error, say after 6 months or after 1 year, the brain will not perceive that image properly, and then hence the eye will become amblyopic. The fourth one is nystagmus, and the fifth one is organic amblyopia. Like if there is any pathology in the retina itself, like for the cone deficiency or the macular damage. Now there are various treatment modalities present which can be helpful to overcome the amblyopia. So first of all, we will be covering the clinical features. Of course, there will be decreased visual acuity in the amblyopia, affected color vision will be present, and there will be crowding phenomena. So what is the crowding phenomena? It is the acuity for multiple letters in line may be worse than single letter acuity. So what does it mean? It means that we all have heard about Snellen's chart. Snellen's chart. So what is there exactly in the Snellen's chart? So there are various letters of different sizes, starting from the bigger size and decreasing in size as we come down in the Snellen's chart, like this. Like this. Like this. So here you can see I have written letters in the decreasing order of the sizes. So in this crowding phenomena, if the patient is amblyopic, and if we'll suppose this is 6/60, this is 6/36, and this is 6/24. So for example, if we ask the patient to read this Snellen's chart, the patient, for example, will be is able to read up till here. The patient is not able to read these letters. So this is the crowding phenomena, because there are multiple letters in one line and the patient is not able to read the letters. For example, and now this. So for example, in this, the patient is able to read till 6/24 because there are single letters in each line. So if this phenomena is present, this is known as crowding phenomena. It is present in the amblyopic eyes. This is acuity for the multiple letters in line may be worse than single letter acuity. So what is the treatment for the amblyopia? The short treatment for amblyopia can be occlusion therapy. So what we are exactly doing in occlusion therapy? We are occluding the normal eye to force use the amblyopic eye. So in this, what we are doing, so for example, if the left eye is normal and right eye is amblyopic, so we'll cover the left eye, so the patient is forced to see the objects to the right eye, so that brain will start receiving signals from that eye again. So but there is some sequence, or there is a proper method by which occlusion therapy is done. So here, if the person is up to 2 years, the age of the patient is till 2 years, so 2:1 occlusion is done. It means the normal eye will be occluded for 2 days and the amblyopic eye is occluded for the 1 day. In this, you have to remember that we will also occlude the amblyopic eye, because if we'll only occlude the normal eye, so the normal eye may become amblyopic, because the brain is not receiving receiving signal from the normal eye. So in this way, if we not occlude the normal eye, the normal eye can also become amblyopic. So in the so we doesn't want this, so we'll also occlude the normal eye and we'll also occlude the amblyopic eye. But the difference between the two thing is that the duration for which we are occluding the eyes. And similarly for 3 to 5 years, so this will depend upon the age. So for 3 years, we will occlude for 3:1, that is 3 days for the normal eye and 1 day for the amblyopic eye. And if the age is 4 years, we will occlude normal eye for 4 days and 1 for the amblyopic eye. And if the age is 5 years, we will occlude the normal eye for 5 days and 1 for the amblyopic eye. And if the age is more than 6 or more than 6, then we'll do the 6 days, 6:1, that is 6 days for the normal eye and 1 for the amblyopic eye. So but the main thing you have to remember for this is the refractive error and the opacity in media should be removed. For example, if the squint is present in the right eye, the squint should be corrected before the occlusion therapy. Or if there is only small amount of squint, that is patient is able to fixate, then it is fine. But if the deviation is very large, that is after closing the normal eye, patient is still not able to fix it, then what is the point of occlusion therapy? So for the occlusion therapy to work, the amblyopic eye should be able to focus. If the deviation is small, the eye may focus. But if the deviation is very large, or if the refractive error is very large, firstly you have to correct that pathology. Only then, after correcting that thing, we have to do the occlusion. Right friends, now coming upon to the motor adaptations. There are 3 types of motor adaptations: fusion, head posture, and blind spot mechanism. So first of all, fusion. Fusion, I have already told you that if there is manifest squint, I will try to fuse so that it can become latent. Fine. If we'll break the fusion, or if we'll ask the patient to look only with one eye, then the binocularity and the fusion will be broken and the squint will manifest. So the fusion, ability of the eyes to convert tropia to phoria, right? And if fusion is strong, squint may remain latent and does not manifest. So it requires binocular input, and covering one eye breaks the fusion and squint will be manifested. Now second is head posture. Head posture is to tackle the squint, manifest squint, that is the incompetent squint. The head posture is mainly present in the incompetent squints. So for that, the eye will assume a head posture. By assuming this head posture, the eye will be in a position that there will be no deviation, or small amount of deviation will be present in that head posture, which can be overcome by the fusion. So what does it mean? So for example, the eye will try to keep the body will try to keep the eye in that position in which there will be minimum deviation. As I already told you that in incompetent squint, the deviation will be different in different gazes. So what will eye will try to do that in the gaze in which deviation will be maximum. So the eye will try to the body will try to focus in such a way, or body will assume such a posture that the deviation can become minimum, or the deviation can, or the diplopia which is present, that can be overcome by the patient. This you can more clearly understand when you will watch my subsequent videos on paralytic squints. Now the third one is blind spot mechanism. For example, in esotropia of 15 degree, the image may fall on the blind spot of other eye and does not cause diplopia. So what does it mean? So for example, this is the retina of the eye, this is the fovea, and if the deviation is such that the image fall on the blind spot, so the image will not be perceived by the brain, and only the image from the normal eye will be sent to the brain, and hence there will be no diplopia, and the person will not experience diplopia. So this can also act as a compensatory mechanism. So friend, that is all about in this video. So you can, for further topics, you can watch my subsequent videos, in which I will be discussing the examination of the squint, competent and incompetent squint. So friends, thank you very much, and stay safe and stay healthy.